Okay, we are on air. First, I want to thank Caster Joe 67 to host this, and he asked me for a disclaimer that he is not responsible for anything said in this hangout. It's our responsibilities and not his. So that's it. Hey, hello.
I was going to say, I can agree with that. I'm always responsible for what I say. Nobody else is responsible for that but me anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he wanted me to say that, and it's logic, so it's normal. And of course, we are all responsible for our own words.
Yes.
Okay, and I asked several other guests, but they are not here yet.
Yeah.
So that's
So,
kind of pity.
yeah, that is too bad. Sometimes people's schedules interfere, and it's hard to for me to find a time where I can be on Hangouts with people. I end up not getting to more often than I get to.
Yeah. I think I'll have to be patient and not think about why not or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I made this intro. Did you saw that?
The intro?
Yeah.
No, because I haven't. I don't know. Actually, let me see if I have a link to the actual. And I think that would probably be in my Twitter, and I have that closed.
Mm. But
But let me see.
in that intro, I told for 10 minutes what I want to talk about in this hangout. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so, but it doesn't matter. I have notes on the paper here, so I propose we start with that.
All right.
All right. Well, well, you know it's about what I call cultural postmodernism. And postmodernism because I want to see it in a cultural way after World War II, because before World War II we had modernism. So, and cultural postmodernism, I'm talking about the pseudological lies, feminism, homosexuality, atheism, uh, which,
Okay.
which changed the system, society, and people's hearts and minds, and even polluted the environment and also destroys the world. So that's the structure. No, okay.
Okay.
Even before, even if there were roots of feminism before postmodernism, yeah, before World War II.
Yeah, there were, but I don't think that they used that name. I think, well, there were people using the word feminism prior to World War II, but prior to the type of thought that exists in postmodernism, um, I think there was still a gynocentric attitude, or an attitude that basically coddles women and treats women as being more important than men in a way that's not functional.
Yeah,
Um,
and
you
and
know,
and making men ridiculous because of the pet repeal. Like I'm so angry about this Democratic National Congress. It's such a bullshit with the glass ceiling and such.
well, they're using a word that means the opposite of how they're using it. And I want to clarify: I don't think there's a functional way to say that women are more important than men.
Yeah,
But I do recognize that in the family structure, men have always put their wives' and children's needs first. And there was a function to that.
but it,
But there were also, women also put their husbands' and children's needs first too, and in different ways. And feminists have fought really hard to imbalance that by keeping men held to their side of it, but taking women out of their side of it.
yeah, and giving women choices, and it was
So they
teamwork.
say.
It was teamwork, but now it's all hedonism and individuality, but in a collective way. For one sect, for the women's sect, fathers don't matter.
Well, feminists use choice the same way they use, the same way progressives use progressive.
Yeah.
When they say choice, they don't really mean choice. I mean, you look at the abortion debate. They get very upset if you talk about legislating that women are to be given information before they make their decision. They get very upset if you talk about legislating the idea that women have the right to know information about the facility and the person who's going to be performing the abortion. They don't want you to know your doctor's name. They don't want you to know what's being aborted. They don't want you to know what it looks like. They don't want you to know how it's developing. They don't want you to know the potential side effects. They don't want you to know that in rare instances it can be deadly. They don't want you to know how frequently abortions are botched, which I consider them all botched, but that's a different story. So if they really are for choice, they're not doing it right, because choice involves looking at the information that's available to you and making the decision that is the best one for your situation.
But that's it, Hannah. It's about, you said progressive, but this is pro-choice, and we talk about it later, also about abortion, and but it's backwarding, and pro-choice, it means you don't have free will. You have to choose what feminism says is good for us all.
Yep, exactly. No, pro-choice isn't pro-choice. Progressive isn't progressive.
Yeah. And it's not free will, if there is already free will. But when you have a wrong mindset, your thoughts and feelings are also twisted. And you think you care and love, but you're antisocial and destructive. That doesn't match. There's something wrong.
And this is actually encouraged. The idea of sort of this chaotic, wanton, do what makes you feel good right now idea. It's led to a great deal of problems in society, and it's not just there's problems in marriage because of it, but what college students are going through right now, that traces back to the free love generation. The idea that you can just, screw around like rabbits and there will be no consequences because sex is love, and it's all of what love is, and so on.
They never learned how to choose right. They never
learned. It's very damaging.
It's the same thing that they can't think for themselves. They are not critical. Then they are not skeptical in a healthy way. They are only skeptical when truth. When it's about truth, then they are skeptical. And that's exactly what postmodernism is. Postmodernism says there is no truth. And it's said as if true. So how big can it be? Sorry.
That's the joke there. Postmodernist walks into a bar. Are you sure?
Yeah.
And two feminists walk into a bar. The third one ducks. Fourth one says, "Oh, but the patriarchy put that there." Wrong bar.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, the whole thing. It's kind of interesting to see how, if you go back through like the history of its evolution in just the United States, and how slowly and carefully this web of lies was woven around society, starting with the idea that women were enslaved by things in society that affected both sexes, and that placed requirements and restrictions on both sexes, very often to more detriment for men and more benefit for women. And people bought it.
Yeah, but I'd rather talk about development instead of evolution. And I have another perspective, but it matches with what you're saying. I'm talking about second wave feminism, and nowadays third wave feminism and fourth wave feminism, this intersectional bullshit. And the third wave feminism about equality, blah 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 blah. But second wave feminism has nothing to do with suffragettes or whatever.
No,
It's
but it,
second wave feminism is pro-choice. It started with birth control pill. And
yeah, it's
think,
where
think about
it,
think about the birth control pill. Yeah, when you're 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, young girl, and you get hormones while your brain is still in development. And hormones are so important for brain development.
yes, yeah.
So what does that mean? And at the same time, the idea you can choose about life and death. You know you can have an abortion. All those things. You know you can adopt a child or you can divorce. All those things. What does that do to your mindset?
And that's also where that idea kicked into high gear. Like in the first wave, they talked about and started making financial changes and things with respect to their claims that women were enslaved. But the pill happened because of that. They wanted to have a means where women could control reproduction without any input
Oh,
from the
absolutely.
man,
There,
without
there must,
any,
there must have been
unilaterally.
there must have been a lobby do research which led to the birth control pill. Yes.
Well, there was a market for it. That's something that,
Yeah.
that's out a little bit outside the control of any political movement. This is something that women wanted.
Well,
And
I have
now,
a special story about that because there is this professor, Dick Swab.
hmm
He's a neurological professor, and he did research on homosexual brains
hmm
for men died after 65, and it were 15 cases. And how do you say it? He saw there was a brain, there was something different in the brain of these homosexuals. There was a bulb at the amygdala. I believe it was the amygdala or the hypothalamus.
what was his sample size?
Is what? His sample size 15.
15?
15 older men. But next, within 4 years, the politics adopted a law that homosexuality was normal. And he suggested that they were born like that, but he never investigated just borns or fetuses or whatever if they were born like that. No, and that's how the story went on. But listen, his father, he had homosexual fantasies. He projected that on little Dickie Schwab.
Okay.
And his father imported, and here we connect the dots, imported birth control pill in Europe. And they had many shares, stocks, how do you say it, in production of that. So here we go, a stupid research, which doesn't say anything because there are so many differences in brains of people.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to base a statement about all the people in the world on a sample size of 15. I mean, it's something that what that indicates is that more research should be done, really.
Yeah,
And
but
then the other thing is that's not even fully agreed to by gay people. There are some who say it's biological, and there are some who say it's not biological. And it's not really.
Hannah, even if it is biological, I say it's cultural.
Now, and to me, it's not really relevant one way or another as far as most things that come up with respect to sexuality. I mean, whether or not somebody's proclivities are natural, has no bearing on whether or not it's moral for instance, to tie them to the back of a truck and drag them until they die, which has happened in the United States to somebody for being gay, that's wrong no matter what.
Stop. Because, sorry I interrupt, but this is very important. Being gay doesn't exist. And here's
Yeah,
where,
I don't agree with you on that because I'm bisexual.
no, whatever, being gay doesn't exist. And here is what it's all about. It's about identity politics and sexualization. It's about
Except
gender
except that
and
that's existed for hundreds of years before identity politics became a
yeah, but I
thing.
don't say it didn't exist. I don't say it doesn't exist. I say being has to be defined in the context of human being. And they are claiming they are a human being with their sexuality. No, because we are all hetero.
I don't understand what you're getting at there. Are you insinuating that people who are homosexual are not human?
Yeah, that's what they think. No, I say it's a false claim on being human. And it's about feelings and about sexual taste. It shouldn't be an issue in this judicial system. It shouldn't be legal. It shouldn't be illegal.
Well, I do agree that there should not be laws written regarding it. I don't think it's something that, it's the law really doesn't have any business getting involved in that. But if you're saying that we're not all human, then I'm gonna have to disagree with you there.
No, we all are human, but we are not equal in a civilized, in a citizen way. But
Yeah, no, that's true.
as humans, we are equal. But then I define being human. And being human is being hetero, being a child, being a father and mother. And that's it. That's it. And
No, I disagree with you there too, because there's actually a scientific definition of a human being is a living organism that is genetically human. That's it. There's nothing complicated about that.
and genetically, we are hetero. It's about the XX and the XY chromosome. It's the same. We are talking the same thing.
See, I'm not sure I understand what genetically we are Hitler means either.
What?
No, I'm not following you. It doesn't.
Genetically, you have XX chromosomes. In every cell you have, you are defined by XX chromosomes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And males have XY chromosomes. But that's exactly your definition about what's a human being. And
right.
Defined by genes. But genes can express in phenotypes in different way. And so we have sexual dimorphism. Okay, that's the expression of the genes, and that's still natural.
But they're still human genes. In other words, they don't make you a cow or a chimpanzee or, a coneflower or a snail.
But I'm talking now about the human species only.
Right.
Right.
So having minor differences doesn't make you not a human.
But expressing the genes in phenotype, like sexual dimorphism, doesn't mean that people can express in other ways too.
Right.
Because of epigenetics or because of pollution of the mother or something. It can do something to the child. We don't know. But still, that is cultural then. When that happens, it's cultural. But most of homosexuals and 50 Shades of gender bullshit is cultural because of identity politics. Because children, as young as possible, are indoctrinated with these postmodern cow shit, and they
now I can give you that a lot of confusion is caused by early indoctrination. That is true, and I think that's where we also get people who at middle age or in their 20s say, I've been living a lie. I'm this sexuality. I thought I was that sexuality, but I'm this sexuality. I think a lot of it has to do with childhood indoctrination, and that can go more than one way as well. I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest problems we have is emphasis on it. You know,
Oh,
emphasis on this idea of not emphasis on indoctrination, but emphasis. Children don't need emphasis on sexuality. They need emphasis on being kids and learning to read and learning to do math and learning to have accountability to rules and things like that.
Moreover, Hannah, let children be children.
Right.
Let women be women. Let men be men. Let boys be boys. Let girls be girls. So fuck off with this common core cow shit. Don't indoctrinate our children, even against the parents, how the parents want to raise their children.
Well, and it's one thing
And
to
wait. I want to say something more because
okay.
you say children are being confused. Well, that's very that's it, and even more, they're traumatized, and I do connect even with Islamic youngsters who do a terrorist act. I do see there that it has to do with postmodernism too. Because they are confused, they are confused. They are at home. They are raised Islamic, and then they go to school. They get this Common Core bullshit, and then they learn about ISIS and or ISIL. You say, yeah? ISIL.
Yeah. I think the only person in the United States that really uses the term ISIL is our president. I don't really hear that from anybody else.
Indeed, that's true. Yeah, and that's why, and because of all this shit, you have this avatar. Because everything now is racist or sexist or misogyny or Jew hate or or I said that already, or Islamophobic or homophobic, and everything is, and that's another point I want to make. The system has been changed, has been screwed, and now the discrimination and unequal treatment, they are meaningless.
Yeah, they've basically gone the opposite again. Like, that's postmodernist language is opposite language, and if you don't discriminate in favor of their approved groups, they call it discrimination.
Yeah.
When in fact it's non-discrimination. Non-discrimination is now discrimination. War is peace, love is hate. Isn't that the quote? And it's sad because that's basically going to lead to the end of society if we continue it.
You said the core word, in fact.
Yeah. Fact is women are allergic to facts.
Yeah,
they're allergic to facts.
Yeah, and it's denying truth. And they're projecting, and then they're claiming tolerance. And we have to include, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sick of those cucks and conservatives because Republicans also talk like this. They
do the same thing. They do, and it's been very frustrating.
They are totally leftish.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating.
That's the conservatives.
The big problem that I've had over the last 20 years or so is we have had things in the United States that needed to be focused on, really needed to be focused on. And the conservatives have been obsessed with everything except those things. It's like they've danced around the real problems here in the U.S. in order to focus on things that are popular to talk about instead.
Yeah.
Because they felt like that would, and so they went with these feelings of we can feel good about this, and we can feel popular, and we can believe that people are approving what we're doing, and that's just as good as actually being right, but it's not.
And that's how they made us work and vote cattle. And then they went from cowards for not going into these issues and just let it happen. How can you Joe Dane, or what was it about abortion? Joe Wade. How can it happen?
Are you talking about? Uh, are you talking about the recent attempt at I think it was in Texas when they were going to limit the time to second trimester or earlier?
No, 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 no. I'm talking about 30 years ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade. That
Yeah.
sorry. And how can it happen when you're a conservative? How can you let it happen? It's impossible. So they were
Well,
cowards. They were cowards, and now they are traitors.
yeah, because what Roe versus Wade did, conservatives actually could have worked to stem the tide and stem the damage there. Roe versus Wade basically threw the issue back to the states. So conservatives at the state level, at the time Roe versus Wade happened, could have taken steps to make women accountable by starting when they were little girls, teaching them their anatomy, teaching them about gestational anatomy,
Yeah,
and so they would not go into this ignorant, and they wouldn't put their feelings before facts and choose to, as long as they could feel like they weren't doing anything bad, then they could feel comfortable doing it, and they
but,
would go ahead
but
and do it.
but it was not bad to make healthy choices. So to not spread your legs. But sexualization and identity politics, that was progressive. The children were misleaded. Come on.
Yeah, they really did mislead, and they've misled the adults too. One
Yeah,
of the misleading things is the idea that abstinence education doesn't work because there are some students who do not follow through with it. Um, the idea that it didn't work for any of the students. Well, every time it's used fully, properly, every time you actually abstain, you don't get pregnant. It's really easy. Like you don't have sex, you don't get pregnant.
yeah,
You
but
know.
that was the progressive way. And
Yeah.
now they feel free and liberated. So progression is good. And all the old nonsense, we don't want that because it's patriarchy. Blah, 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 blah.
And they also wanted to teach it like it was an either or choice, as if teaching children that not having sex is the best way to prevent pregnancy, the most effective way to avoid sexually transmitted diseases, and the smartest way to avoid getting your heart ripped out while you're a teenager on the level that it gets ripped out if you sleep with somebody and then you break up with them.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
much too young when you're 16.
that
When you're
that if
16, you're much too young to get into a relationship.
right,
You can have how do you call it? You can fall in love. Of course you do when you're 16. The hormones.
yes,
Yeah, but you have to know you must not make those choices. And boys have to know that too. Yeah, because
yeah,
that's
they
also
don't.
a lack in information. Boys must know too, and not that boys can fuck around. And there is a point the feminists have. Boys can fuck around and girls cannot. Yeah, that's the point. Um,
Yeah, they don't ever talk about the boys who commit suicide because they fell in love with a girl and she dumped
oh
them for
yeah,
another guy. No,
there's
they never talk about that.
there's the dark side. They never talk about how men suffer, how fathers suffer, how boys suffer, how they are being confused with all this cow shit, which feminism triggers. Yeah.
No, yeah, no, they would.
And
They, in
now,
fact,
and so you can't have healthy relationships anymore. You can't
yeah,
develop the highest level of developing human well-being in pursuing happiness and freedom of expression is to be there as grandparents for your children and your grandchildren together
yeah.
in love.
And it's interesting, a lot of these people, these social justice types, in many ways, they pretend to treat ethnicities, non-white ethnicities, as if they're something special and better than white ethnicities, but they ignore a lot of their historical traditions. For instance, I think most people know them as the Mohawk. I don't remember how to pronounce their proper name. and this would be some of my ancestors, their tradition was not only did they have intact families, but they had extended families living under the same roof. They had long houses where the parents, if I remember right, it was the mother's family that you moved in with.
Mostly,
Um,
yes.
but it basically, the grandparents were there for the children. They would be, they would be able to go back and forth between where the mom's parents were and the father's parents were, unless there were great distances to travel. But the thing was, there was an extended family there influencing the children, and there was a great deal of demonstration of their value to the family and the
Yeah,
family's value to them.
but it's biased because it was the mom's extended family and not the father's.
Well, you
You
would
know,
think
and then
feminists would like that, but they don't.
another thing, postmodernism hijacked that. And now
Yeah.
they say it takes a village to raise a child. But meanwhile, they're destroying family life. So
Yeah, they don't want that village to be the family.
it takes a village to be father.
Yeah, they want that village to be the government. They want that village
Yeah,
to be completely detached.
and this is what also about this Democratic National Congress. They say family first, but they mean single moms.
Yeah, and they've really
And single moms households are not families. Yeah, but they
really
changed the
screwed everybody
definition.
over.
In the 90s, mid 90s, they changed the definition of family into household with children. And this is how they compromised family life in the context of human rights.
What really blows my mind, even knowing about not confirmation bias, but uh, crap. I said it earlier. In-group bias. Even knowing about in-group bias, even
Uh,
knowing that they still were able to sell this to women so easily. This idea that evicting the father of their children from their children's lives, from their homes, to become a lone wolf against the world, basically trying to raise their kids. They sold this idea to women that this was a good thing for them.
yeah,
It's bad for the kids, it's bad for the man, it's bad for society, but it's also bad for the women.
yeah,
What a
yeah.
rotten position to be
It's
in.
bad for everyone. You know, it's you're totally right about this.
And I like my
And the
situation.
other thing, when you want to be a stay-at-home dad or mom, you're not accepted.
Yeah, and that's wrong too. And then sometimes men are more suited in a given household than women to do that, and sometimes women are more suited. More often, I think women.
Well,
But
let them divide the tasks in
yeah,
their
in
family,
their way.
and don't in their way, and don't government and any teaching children at school that it's normal that single moms are normal. You shouldn't do that. You
The
shouldn't do
government
that.
really shouldn't be defining what's normal anyway.
Hey, children without their father are being discriminated because discrimination is not about civil rights but about human rights.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the human right is normal family life in the context of inalienable, how do you say it?
inalienable, yes.
Inalienable natural rights.
Well,
And
and the thing is,
it's totally violated.
there's data that backs that up.
So
Actually, there's
the father children are discriminated. But it used to be when your parents were divorced, you were not normal in the classroom. Yeah, but now
right,
it's
right.
normal. And now when your parents are not divorced, that's not normal.
Yeah, you're right. My son has experienced that. But there's data that backs up what you're talking about as far as children is that separating children from their fathers is discrimination. The Heritage Foundation in the United States has compiled some research, and then there's also another group I listed in my video on fathers, feminism versus fathers, that has compiled more research. But among other things, you find that boys and girls who are raised without their father are 50% more likely to become unwed parents. They are more likely to end up living in poverty as adults. If they're in an environment where there is welfare, they are more likely to end up using it, and they are more likely to end up
And,
depending on it in the long term.
and
They're
you know
also
the Civitas report. It's
hmm?
already 15 years old. The Civitas report and the regular studies, they already say that for decades.
Yep. So this is deliberate because these people knew when they orchestrated this over time. They knew when they tried to make this the norm what they were doing to the children. They knew it would be a self-perpetuating cycle.
And another thing, you say 50%, but the other
Yep.
50%, listen, the other 50%, my children are doing fine social, societal. And they fit in those researches, but there's no research about emotional, psychological
There's not.
aspects. Because defathering, when my children hate me for the wrong reasons, you know, and they have been brainwashed and indoctrinated, and it's very, very heavy story, but whatever. They don't.
There is some research into the psychological damage on parental alienation, and
Yeah,
it's actually
but that's at the back end. That's parental
it
alienation. You should make it at the front end.
yeah, and it actually what they've found, and I don't have it in front of me, so I cannot remember
You
the name
look
of the study.
at
But what they have
Aaron,
found,
Aaron Woodall and
right?
Warshak and all these studies.
Well, when I was reading about it, what I saw was that the same types of psychological damage, or rather the same behavioral evidence of psychological damage in children who have been subjected to parental alienation, which is when a parent is pushed out of their lives and then they are systematically indoctrinated against that parent. The damage that they suffer is very similar to the type of damage that a person suffers when they are sexually abused or emotionally abused during their youth.
Yeah, or shock shelled.
Yeah, very much. So they go through some very self-destructive behaviors that aren't necessarily going to get directly linked, but it does correlate very strongly with
Hey,
parental alienation.
another association I get now is these children are broken and incomplete in their being. eh? And it's the same as the single mom household. It's a broken and incomplete household.
Oh, well, what happens is they do not get a complete picture of what it is to be an adult.
Yeah,
Because when men and women act as a team, they fill certain roles.
Incomplete.
Right. They get an incomplete picture. If you think about it, even if you have both parents working, which happens in a lot of lower income households because they don't have a choice.
That's not the issue.
Even if you have that.
But 5 days a week in kindergarten,
right.
Not good.
You still have, even under that circumstance, you still have different responses to the children from mom than you have from dad. It's like if you look at my childhood, I've used it as an example with my childhood asthma and what I needed to do in order to be healthier so I could survive. My parents both took dramatically different approaches to helping me through that time. And my mom wanted to be my shield against the environmental factors that would make me sick, which is normal. That's you want to protect your children from everything.
That's love. That's love.
Right. My dad wanted to give me a sword to fight back, and that's also normal. If I'd have just had one or the other, I would have had a very incomplete lesson on how to deal with my illness.
Otherwise, you could only flee, or you could
only fight.
You could not fight, indeed.
Right. And I had to have both in order to do both, because I couldn't fight without having the tools I needed to treat the attacks when they happened.
Yeah, but nowadays you must be tolerant, and you must be peaceful, you have respect, and whatever your mindset, it's your choice, and other people have to tolerate that, even if it are lies. And that's, we are so good. You know this John Lennon song, Imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, It's a war song.
It's an
It's not
idealist's
peace.
look.
It's not peace. It's war.
Yeah, it's an idealist's look at things, and not to hate on Lenin, but he was an idealist, and
Yeah, but I want to
yeah,
connect
then
to. I want to
then you
connect
grow
to.
up,
I want to connect to the pseudo-radicalized feminism, homosexuality, atheism, and here we talk about atheism. Imagine no religion. That's a war declaration.
Well, to be honest, imagine no religion is more anti-theism. Anti-theism is opposition to religion. And I've run into both
For
online.
me,
Anti-theism, and I differentiate because there's a lot of people who are just quietly, non-believers, and that's their business. And as long as they don't tell me what I got to think, I don't tell them what they got to think. That's fine. But
yeah,
when I get somebody that comes along and is
Hannah, but whatever subgroups we all are agnostic. Do you
right,
agree? Right. And you can
and,
believe in a God. That's not irrational. But
right.
believing in nothing is like division by zero. It's like the square root of -1. It's
Now,
irrational. It's irrational. Atheism or anti-theism or whatever, it's irrational.
my thought on it's really simple. If it's something that they do by themselves or that they do as part of a group by themselves where they're not trying to change the world based on it, they can sit around in their living room and talk all night about hating religion or disliking religion or disbelieving in religions or any other opinion they have. I don't care. I really don't, because it's not affecting the rest of the world.
Can you
Where
understand
where it
why I place it on the culture of postmodernism
I do.
together with feminism and homosexuality? Okay,
But where I have a problem, I do get where you're putting it.
you do.
Right.
Okay,
But what I'm saying is where I have a
what do
problem.
you think? Why do I do that?
Well, it's obvious. It's part of the thought process that goes toward dismantling the existing order of things in order to make room for this postmodernist order of things, for this I don't know what else to call it other than collectivism.
Hey man, you're a woman.
I understand
You're,
that. I
you're
fully
right.
understand that.
Okay, but in detail, I say destroying normal family life. That's
Right.
important for atheists because that's countering religions.
Well, it depends on which atheist you're talking about, because I know some who are very vehemently
Uh,
pro-family.
okay, you have intersectional atheism. Okay.
Well, what I have is, as I said, what I have is people I know who see the family structure as the most functional structure for, human, not just human reproduction, but having a society that's made up of family structures rather than a society that's made up of detached individuals.
As
And
it
there's a
used to
lot of
be,
reasons for it.
and the constitution is based on that.
Right.
Because of natural rights, because of normal
So,
family life, which is the core of society. And
right.
that
So
is pursuit.
destroying the family.
Wait. And that is pursuit of happiness. And that's
Right.
your expression, and not freedom of speech in the sense of talking nonsense and talking pseudological lies. No.
So, in other words, destroying the family, though, is not specifically an atheist value. It isn't specific to all atheists. So that's something that, and I think part of that is that, a lot of
Yeah,
modern atheists are not really attached to
but
the original, like the early 20th century progressive
hey, Hannah, I think
movement.
when you structure atheism, top priority still is destroying normal family life, even if there is an inside group who think different.
Well, that's the problem. There
But,
are many,
but
many
the
different
problem first,
types of thought now within atheism, and in fact, there are people who call themselves atheists who are not atheists. There's a whole forum called Atheism Plus that is feminist.
Yeah.
They're not atheists; they practice a religion.
Yeah, but
So I mean,
there are also many who claim atheism. Well, they are
right.
agnostic. Well, they are agnostic.
Yeah, you can't very well claim to be atheist if you are following a religion like feminism, and feminism is a cult-like religion.
Yeah, I heard this. You had it with the honey badger that feminism was a religion, but this was the Merriam-Webster definition. But feminism is not a religion. No, it is a belief system, but not a religion.
No, it even has its holy texts. It's got everything that
It's sectarian. It's sectarian.
Yeah, they treat men as both gods and devils. They're like a religious cult. They're not like a functional religion, like the type that actually.
That's why I say it's a sect, but it's not a religion. It's a sect.
Well, or a cult, like
cult.
That's
the word. Cult.
Jonestown people. But yeah, in any case, the problem is.
I would say atheism and agnosticism can't go hand in hand. Impossible. I said it before. It's like division by zero. It's irrational. Atheism is irrational, and so is feminism, and so is homosexuality.
I see most people who call themselves atheists state that they have not a belief in absence of God, not a belief that there is no God, but a lack of belief that there is one, that they're not convinced, which I always took to mean agnostic. I call myself agnostic simply because I have to have a label or people don't know what I'm talking about.
Hey, but even believers are agnostic. And you have gnostics, they are as idiot as atheists. Because they don't know and they claim they know that God exists.
and the evidence that they give is, of course, something that would be reduced to nothing by critical thinking.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You can't prove there's an outer universal God.
Right, not at this point. We don't have the ways of detecting that we would be able we would need.
And you can think about it in a philosophical way. Who created God? And who created the creator of God? And you can go 11 dimensions or 20 dimensions further, and you still have no answer.
I believe that is why the founding fathers of the United States created an amendment that specifically stated that the state is not allowed. They created the amendment.
No, they didn't create it. They didn't create it.
They wrote it.
No, they made it.
Well, that's the same thing.
Humans can't create.
That's the same thing.
No, creation.
You're nitpicking.
Creation is making something from nothing.
I think you're nitpicking at this point. In any case, the point is that is why that amendment exists. That the church cannot dictate what the nation does, and the nation cannot dictate people's church decisions or decisions to not church if they don't want to.
That's great about the American Constitution, about the Bill of Rights. They protect the people against institutions. That's
right.
Great.
And it's needed. And part of the reason that it's needed is because we don't have that proof. And we do have such a diversity of opinions.
It's the same.
Nobody can prove anybody's wrong.
It's the same with the Second Amendment. And now they want gun control. Yeah.
I don't like that term. I will be honest. I'm going to nitpick now. Because it's not control, it's prohibition.
Yeah, indeed. And it's a behavior cult. Again.
Control was saying you got to have a license to operate one of these things, which is questionable. And I understand in a large population there are reasons, but it's still questionable because it is saying you have to have a license to have the right to arm yourself, which is basically holding you accountable for a criminal act before you commit one. And I don't buy into that.
It's the same thing you register in birth certificate. It's the
right.
same thing. And it's not
I understand the reasons behind doing that too, but at the same time, those reasons can have kind of creepy aspects.
It's a slippery slope, and the same thing with Obamacare. everything is going to be changed into postmodernism.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and you have, with birth certificates, for instance, you have the only way to prove who the parents of a child are, if somebody kidnaps that child, you have the birth certificate. If four people go to a judge and say, no, we're the parents, no, we're the parents, you have to have something. And
yeah, but
that's understandable. But at the same time, it also gives the government a measure of power over the individual, because the
that's
government's now
that,
deciding who
that,
you are.
that's the issue about birth certificate. You're property of the state,
Yep.
and parents are allowed to have custody or not.
You ever read a book? It's kind of a kid's book, but kind of not, called Watership Down.
Oh, I read it. It's about it. He had another book also about rabbits.
Yes, yes. And you remember when the rabbits come to the hutch in the farmer's field, where the rabbits think they have it great because there's food laid out for them every day, and they don't have any natural predators that other animals that are attacking them, and they don't have um, they've got shelter, so they don't have to deal with the elements and so on, and they're so pampered and they have it so easy that they've bred out of
Or
control, and the mothers are absorbing their young instead of giving birth, because there's just not room for any more rabbits. But there's this undercurrent of fear and things they're not talking about,
that's
and then
it. That's
yeah,
it.
and then you
But I
learn.
don't remember that because in that time I was a beta guy.
Yeah.
I was just autistic or something or whatever you
Well,
call it
the
now.
rest of the story, the rest
Huh?
of that part of the story, because there's more.
Yeah, but
The
I do recognize it.
the rabbits
I
then
do.
learn.
I want to say I do recognize it now. But
Yeah,
when I read it 35 years ago,
it didn't strike you that way, did it?
no, because I was
No.
just a beta male.
But you remember the part of the story where they learned about the wire trap, where the farmer was periodically, they just weren't talking about it. The rabbits just weren't talking about the fact that the farmer was periodically trapping and killing rabbits in his field. That he was laying food out for them to keep them there, that he was making everything perfect for them, not because he was benevolent, not because he loved rabbits and wanted to have them around, but because every so often he was going to catch one of them, and that rabbit was going to end up on his dinner table. Now, that's not a statement against hunting. I got nothing against hunters. That's actually, a huge part of my family history. But it is a statement about elitists, particularly in government,
Oh yeah, I
and
recognize. Yeah,
this postmodern idea
yeah,
that it's their job to provide for everybody else, and it's their job to take care of everybody else, and it's their morality and their ethics that trump everybody else's.
Trump.
And Trump. uh, but and therefore we should all just sit back and let them make all the decisions, and let
Yeah.
them create all of the wealth, as if wealth is created or
Hey,
destroyed. And
democracy
and
is
well,
two.
it is created and destroyed.
Democracy is two wolves and a sheep.
Yeah.
Uh, voting,
Deciding.
voting for what's for dinner.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we don't live in a democracy here in the United States. A lot of people think we do. We could take it back.
We
It's
all
going to be a
know.
long, hard road.
We all know
But
democracy. We all know democracy is a fraud, and
we live in an
It's
oligarchy.
a Trojan horse for feminism and homosexuality, and that's why we had all these revolutions and all these wars.
We haven't lived in a democracy in the United States, I don't think, ever. It's been a representative republic the entire time, but
Yeah,
it's been
but
taught
but
that we live in a democracy.
elite is fraud now. Intelligentsia fail. It used to be that elite protected us. They had sense of what's going on, and they've reflected that on the constitution. Hey, but another thing, Hannah, we still
Mhm.
have 5 minutes. I think we're having a great conversation, and I want to talk with you more also about personal things in private hangouts maybe or something. But I want to talk about one thing, and that is divorce is child abuse.
Yes, I will agree with that. And breaking up a kid's family is a horrible thing to do to the child.
Why?
And well, for one thing, you're putting the child in a position where they have to choose between their parents. You are putting a child in the middle of an unnecessary and unwanted conflict, and you are basically telling the child that half of what he or she is bad.
Yeah,
You
but
know, and
you
it's
miss the point. Because you know why divorce is child abuse? Because, hi, Castor, Joe, we still have several minutes. You know why divorce
5 minutes, people.
yeah,
yes,
it's
okay.
okay. Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
know why divorce is child abuse? Because children suffer. And children are being harmed and damaged for life in their being. That's why divorce is child abuse.
That is true.
Huh? And so, next thing, the divorcing parent thus is not fit.
Not fit. Oh,
She's
well,
fit,
yeah, that makes
she's
sense.
fit, she's fit because feminism says so. Because social justice says so. Because child protection says so.
No.
But she is not fit. It's child abuse. And why don't we do anything about that?
Well, we used
And
to, believe it or not.
so I have a one-liner. Divorce is child abuse. The divorcing parent is unfit. Okay, you recognize this logic. And next I say, because I don't want to break up families. You have to remove the divorcing parent, paradoxically, from family and children at once. And there's a next sentence, next one-liner, to reunite as soon as possible after being deprogrammed and healed from feminism or any other mind illness. So what about that?
Well, if you're talking about camps, I think that's not a good approach. I don't think it would work, and I think it would be just as abusive. But if you're
Oh, it
talking
would work.
about
When you put such a woman, I say, for 2 weeks in a container, you piss on her, you shit on her, and you tell her where she's wrong. Oh yes, you can deprogram her.
no, I think what you would end up doing was leading to a revolution, not necessarily a good one. You'd end up with women using that to justify their beliefs that men are abusers instead of teaching, I
Yeah,
would
but
go
you
to
have
the
to
other
do
end of it.
something.
I would go completely to the other end of it. I would say, all right, if a
Do
woman leaves,
you have an alternative?
yes,
We have
absolutely.
1 minute left.
If a woman leaves, she leaves without custody of her children. If a man
Oh,
leaves, he
oh,
leaves without custody of his
great,
children.
great,
They
great
cannot get
solution.
they cannot get the property, they
That's
cannot
what
get the money, and I will tell you what,
that's
the
what I said.
reason
That's what I said.
that's
My ex-wife. It's
right.
great.
And the reason that I think that would be effective is that most women wouldn't walk out if they couldn't take everything with them.
Indeed, they provide
Most women that divorce because they're bored.
because they know the government provides and protects them.
Right. And I think that would be a much better. And I think teaching the value of intact families, within the
Oh
community
yes,
and within families would be
at the
far more
same time.
effective than
Yes.
camps. I think camps would be the worst possible way to go.
Hey Hannah, I think we have to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was great. I really feel good, and not in the way
Well,
of
I'm glad.
not in the way of having fun and feel good terrorism, but just I love it.
As I promised, I gave Ed Verdiesen a voice because I kicked him out of one of my streams, and I don't like doing that. So I did this to make up to it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. I enjoyed it.
Okay, I will stop the stream right now.